Thursday night. It's time for drinks, or it's time for Bitcoin happy hour. I still call it drinks in quarantine. Can't get over that, but we don't want to talk about quarantine. We're here to talk about Bitcoin. There's a lot to talk about. We have an awesome panel here. We have a very fun dynamic, and I'm excited to talk to these gentlemen. Let's start off with introductions. Again, I'm CK. My job is to make sure the conversation flows, and for those who are drinking, the drinks are flowing as well. I'm going to pass it off to Bran, who is in the studio controlling all the magic behind the scenes, and he's co-hosting. Bran, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everybody. Exciting show tonight. I hope you enjoy my green screen. I decided to put nothing on it so that I just look like me on a green screen. I'm fingers crossed here that this could be a 20K watch party, so who knows? We'll see, but just going to throw that out there. And I'll be keeping an eye on the price just while we're chatting, just letting you know if anything happens.
All right, let's hop over to Danish Hodl. Anders, why don't you introduce yourself? How's it going? Welcome to Bitcoin Magazine Happy Hour.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. Cheers. I'm having some Kentucky apple juice here. Yeah, so introduce myself. I do the Toxic Happy Hour on my YouTube channel together with Pop Lord, aka Guy Bennett, who's here as well tonight. Um, you know, yeah, mostly Bitcoin stuff. On eToro, I help people to do a 100% Bitcoin only portfolio. On Bitcoin, they have this. On eToro, they have this concept called popular investor, where if your performance is good, other people can allocate their funds to you. And thanks to Bitcoin outperforming all the shit coins, then my performance has been good, which means more people allocate their funds to me, which is 100% Bitcoin allocation. So I'm happy with that. Right now, it's I have the most assets under management on eToro, which is we just crossed $2 million yesterday. So
Nice.
you know,
Nice. Well, congratulations, and thanks for being the one-eyed man leading the blind to the salvation. Let's go over to your co-host, Guy. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks a lot. Yeah, it's funny whenever I see my name as Guy Bennett here, I forget that's actually my name, because I always go by Pub Lord or Pubby when it comes to Twitter. Yeah, the great thing about this space is the people you meet, how you meet them, how friendly they are. So Anders and I had started speaking about 2 years ago, and after speaking 6 hours a week about Bitcoin, we said, hey, let's just put it live on a show and invite some friends on. And so we have a sort of underground happy hour thing we like to do. But yeah, thanks for having me on. Enjoying it.
Awesome. Let's jump over to Mark. Mark, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much. Fun being here with you guys. I love talking about Bitcoin as much as possible. So anytime we can do that, I'm super stoked. I'm a longtime investor. I am a sound money advocate, and I have become really, very passionate about Bitcoin for about the last 5 years, writing research reports about it. The last couple of years, just making videos about it. And yeah, like I said, any chance I can get to talk to other people about Bitcoin, I'm all about it. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for coming on. Let's go over to RD, and then we'll finish off introductions with Robert Breedlove.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm RD. I make moderately popular memes, Bitcoin memes. That's about the best I do. Yeah, just happy to be here and make up the numbers. Just here to make sure Anders and Pubby behave themselves. I reckon.
Hey, can you give it a shout out to Greggy?
Yeah, shout out to Greggy, definitely. Yeah, he's our boy.
Nice. We got all the memesters here. RD is dialing in from Europe, so we got a crew from around the world, and I know it's quite late over there. So thank you for blessing us with your presence.
Cheers, man.
All right, Robert, how's it going?
What's up, CK? Thanks for having me. My name is Robert Breedlove. I love to write and talk about Bitcoin. Most recently been publishing some articles about once a month, and also launched a YouTube channel called the What is Money Show. So we're just going deep on really all the topics that touch money, which ends up being everything when you go deep enough. And my first guest is Sailor. We recorded for like 10 and a half hours. We're releasing that. We've got 2 episodes released. I'll release another one this week. We've probably got 10 episodes total. And I've got some other heavy hitter guests coming. Just started as like a thing to satisfy my own intellectual curiosity. And I think people are going to love it. It's really, really interesting stuff. So glad to be here and spread the good word about Bitcoin.
Awesome. Well, we're very excited to have you on here. And that sounds like some must watch content. 10 hours of you plus Michael Saylor. That sounds pretty awesome. Guys, I mean, it's kind of, as Bitcoiners who have all been riding through the depth of the bear market, you know, kind of sitting here at 19,000 and everyone's like, when's 20K? It's kind of a surreal place to be. You know, I want to start off the show just talking a little bit about price. Like, truthfully and honestly, like, we are holding above all-time highs. Like, we never really held this level ever before like we're doing. Do you guys have any comments on where we are price-wise? Let's start off with you, Mark.
You know, I try not to focus on the price too much. I think it's a distraction. I try to keep myself from getting too excited when the price goes up because I don't want to get emotionally attached when the price goes back down. I'm in it for such a long-term vision. So I know it may sound a little bit cliche, but I mean, the truth is I just don't really focus on the price that much. That being said, I think definitely based off of what we're just seeing fundamentally with the massive move in from you know, the institutions and whatnot. I put a video out on Tuesday, or maybe it was last week, talking about the Bitcoin shortage, and we saw Grayscale's numbers come out from Q2 said that they're buying up 118% of the daily new mined Bitcoins. We saw Cash App said they're buying 40%, and now PayPal within 3 weeks is buying 70%. Well, that's, if you add that up, that's way more than 100%. So, you know, between the halving, between all that new money coming in, I think 20,000 is the new 10,000, I guess. And so I feel like it's about where we should be. And I guess the stock to flow model is staying intact.
Okay, bringing up the stock to flow. I see Guy's face. He wants to say something.
Yeah.
Puppy, jump in here.
Oh, listen. So, yeah, you know, when I started December 2017 at these prices, obviously it was like the flash in the pan. You know, came in at the top, did the proper thing, went all in, and learned about Bitcoin later. So yeah, what I'm looking at now is how quickly everything, even since 7,000 in April, the difference now is how quickly we jumped from 7 to 9,000. 9 to, well, I wouldn't say quickly, how steadily. There were people buying at the bottom. We find out later it's Michael Saylor. They're buying it. And I see it right now at 19,000. This 19,000 level is holding so strong. So strong.
That's strong. I'm not convinced personally. I'm not a TA analyst, but
well, me neither. I'm not. I promise, I'm not an analyst. But I tell you what, man, the fact that every time there's a major dump, it pulls back so quickly, so hard, so fast. To me, there's other numbers coming into the game now that we're not used to seeing. So yeah, I'm bullish on this right now, because I started at the top of the bottom, so to speak. So I saw what happened then, but now it's a whole different feeling. I rode this thing down to 3,400 and back up again. Now I have I am more confident buying at 20,000 or 19,500 than even I was at 4,000. So yeah, we're good.
Veblen good. This is I mean, that's an arguable fact, but I think it's that we're dealing with a Veblen good. The higher the price, the more people want it. I mean, let's maybe zoom out and just talk about, like, are we surprised about the dynamics around this price right now? Like, are people talking to you? Do you think like the world is truly digesting the fact that Bitcoin is holding 19K right now? Let's jump to Robert. Like, Robert, I'm sure you have a very interesting perspective on this. What's your feelings around, like, are you surprised by how the world is reacting to what Bitcoin is doing?
I think in our I don't want to call it an echo chamber because it's broadened a lot more. Like people focused in the financial world are paying attention this time, whereas it last time was things people didn't really pay attention until it was, you know, way off at the blow off top. But I think the price feels good. I'd be lying if I didn't say it doesn't feel good. Even though I try to not think in dollars, I do still think, because I guess I've been doing it my whole life. And I try to focus more on market cap than price. You guys still got me? So my internet's unstable.
You're jumping, but we got you.
Yep, we got you.
So try to think in sats more than dollars, but I'd be lying if I didn't say the price feels good. Which again, for me, I try to look at market cap. And I think that the other thing that's interesting is some of the funds and OTC desk I've spoken with have said that the buying pattern is different this time. Seeing these dips get eaten up very quickly. And I think that just speaks to the broader awareness of Bitcoin. It's like people see this thing as an increasingly serious macroeconomic asset. So the narrative is evolving that is reflected in its price action.
Hey, Robert, if your internet kind of continues being weird, it might be worth it to turn off your video. But we got like 90% of that. And I agree. It feels like this time is different. RD, Anders, do you guys have an opinion about, is this time different? Do you guys have a different feeling, you know, from the broader environment?
Adi, you want to go first?
Well, I only got in October 2017. So I rode up pretty quickly into December. Thought I was going to be a millionaire by the end of the next year. Had no idea what was going on. And then obviously as the price came back down, I was learning more and more and sort of getting stronger conviction in what I'd bought and what this was really. So yeah, I've only kind of really felt that 2007, you know, the end of that bull run at 2017, and you know, it was totally different for me because I hardly knew what Bitcoin was at the time. So I was, you know, it was all still really raw, quite exciting as well. And like now, like, you know, 3 years down the line, and it feels totally different. Like I don't look at the price hardly at all now. Like
Right.
One of the reasons I made the memes was because it was a distraction. It was something to do, you know, to kind of contribute to the space.
Okay,
And
so not to interrupt you, but has the environment from like the people that you see every day, has that environment about Bitcoin or around Bitcoin or attitude towards Bitcoin changed?
Yeah. Well, I've been talking about it for 3 years to everyone I know, and definitely that people's attitudes have changed. They're asking questions now rather than saying, isn't that something for drug dealers? It's like, so yeah, there's a lot more what's the word? I can't think of the word, but yeah, it's more established now. Yeah.
Lindy seems to always reign true to me. Like that just like that perspective on the world just like seems to work. And Anders, do you want to jump in and give your 2 cents on this, and then we can jump to our first topic?
Absolutely. Although I do think it's a great topic in itself. So yeah, I have been getting messages from people saying, like someone I didn't hear from almost 2 years. Hi Anders, you must be happy now. So, you know, those are starting to come through. I think you know, none of us here are into Bitcoin to make fiat profits. I think that's pretty safe to say. But I think it's okay to look at the price, because the price is a measurement of how far we are in monetary disruption of the existing system with Bitcoin. And right now, Bitcoin is sitting on maybe 0.25% of global monetary value. So that is very small. As we edge up in price, Bitcoin is eating market share. And I think that in itself is really, really interesting. I love the things Mark was saying with all this supply being bought up from just 3 players buying more than the total new fresh supply. So short term, I claim no clue in knowing what Bitcoin is going to be, end of December. But I think the medium term and the long term are quite predictable. And what we're seeing now is really this the halving cycle, the 4-year cycle, which is what I'm quite focused on, where this lack of supply starts to trickle over to an increasing price. As the price starts to increase, we hear from friends, media starts to cover it more, that draws in more people. That then makes the price go up a little bit faster, and then that is like a self-sustaining positive cycle where it gets more and more media coverage, it draws in people faster and faster, people start buying it without knowing what they're buying. Yep. And the price goes up in that FOMO blow off top, which we'll likely see, I think end of next year, Q1 2022, which I think will be above $300,000. And then there's a good chance that the blow off top might, once we see a 20% reduction, there's a lot of people that have bought that have no clue what they bought, and they bought because the price was like this, and they will sell because the price is like this. That I think that's what's happened previously, and there is, that's what I'm expecting to happen again. Although I will say there is an increasing chance that we're hitting escape velocity, and it's just
Thank you.
Let me jump in here. So, I mean, we'll debate if we are going to hit escape velocity soon, but I think there's a great place to transition in. Like, in terms of like people talk about these dream Bitcoin price numbers, and part of that has to do with literally Bitcoin adoption and Bitcoin using Bitcoin as a unit of account and store of value and everything that comes along with making Bitcoin global money. But if that is Bitcoin's destiny, who's going to take us there? Is it the billionaires and the institutions, or is it the people? So I'm kind of curious, what's the main driver here? It seems like people have been saying institutions. Seems like they're finally coming. But the people have been driving it. The hodlers and the stackers have been driving it, up until that point. So I'm curious what y'all think. I saw a guy raising his hand, so I think I'm going to pass it over to him.
Look, man, we've had, in the U.S. we used to be called the Pony Express. So we want to get mail from the East Coast to the West Coast, and we hired a bunch of cowboys to ride on ponies full of mail bags, get the news spread as quickly as possible. That's what we have now. Like, we're handing off, it starts out, and I always believe this, you buy and find and understand Bitcoin at the perfect moment you're meant to. And here's what we're at right now. You're at a point where it was the people that took a chance. They took a chance. They bought. It's the daredevils in the world. I love it. The ones that really just took a chance and are moving forward. Now they're handing off. And this is part of the game theory to me that goes into plan B, whether you like him or not, believe in him or not. But here's what happens. With game theory, it's not so much the number of people coming in, it's now going to be the money coming in per opportunity. And so like the Pony Express that delivered the mail from station to station, the work of the individual hodler is done. We're handing it off to the next, I wouldn't say general, but the next money coming in. And that's going to be your MicroStrategies, of course. Your Apple next, nation state coming after that. So that's what I feel about. We're handing it off right now because we won't be able to realize the amount of cash coming in that wants to buy Bitcoin and put it on their balance sheet.
That's what it seems like. Who wants to jump in?
I'll jump in. I think we've known about the institutions, if you will, coming in for quite a long time. As a matter of fact, when I launched my YouTube channel a couple of years ago, the very first 4 videos I did a 4-part series talking about how Wall Street was going to come in, the risk that it posed, trying to financialize it. and then what Bitcoin could do to protect against it. So, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I think I listened to an interview recently with Robert Breedlove, and he was talking about, kind of referencing the sovereign individual, the book. And for me, that's kind of the vision that I see, right? And so, like, we're going to this world of totalitarianism, if you will, and it's obviously technology is kind of creating that. And the only hope that we have is Bitcoin. And so, really, Bitcoin is our tool to fight back against that system. And so, to see them coming in, to see them coming in to embrace a tool that is meant to put them out of business, like PayPal, for example, it's kind of strange, right? They want to embrace something that's meant to put them out of business. But really, at the end of the day, I'm starting to see some of these institutional guys coming in. I don't want to mention names, but they're already talking about how it needs to be regulated and how we need KYC and we need all these things. And so on one hand, I'm happy to see, some of the big names changing their tune and say, wow, actually, this is something legit. So I'm happy for the confirmation, but I'm not happy to see them wanting to come in and, increase the regulations and whatnot, because that's what they do, right? They come in, they lobby governments, they put regulations in place that entrenches their position. And so obviously there's things that Bitcoin can do to protect itself. But I think the real Bitcoiners, the as Michael Saylor might say, the cyber hornets, whatever, right? We're there, we're going to defend it. And I think we definitely need to be careful of it. And we have to understand that it's a revolution. It's not about just making more money in Wall Street. It's actually a revolution. And I think the real hodlers understand that. And I hope that we can continue. Like I said, the interview I heard with Robert the other day, I mean, that's content that I'm trying to put forth as well. And I think we really need to focus our content on that. I like to say, obviously there's a lot of things happening right now, the Great Reset, World Economic Forum, what the IMF is trying to do with Bretton Woods 2 and whatnot. And it's really scary. And I like to say that, look, the future is not certain, right? The future is what we want the future to be. And one of the big complaints I hear about Bitcoin is, oh, the governments are going to make it illegal. And I say, well, next year, if there's 1 billion people using Bitcoin, if 1 billion people don't want it to be illegal, it's not going to be illegal, right? It's not about what a few people in government want. So I think we need to kind of make sure that our content continues to hit that point. It's a revolution. Here's what it's really about. It's cool to get the confirmation from the Wall Street, but it's not about them especially trying to wrap it up with regulations to protect it. So that's my viewpoint.
Bitcoin is great. I'm here to fix it. We've heard that before.
I was about to
Exactly.
say, so many people join Bitcoin thinking that they're going to come in and fix all of Bitcoin's problems, and then Bitcoin ends up fixing all their problems. So it makes me bullish.
Luckily, Bitcoin doesn't care. I can just add to that or answer your question, CK. So the way I'm looking at it, is it retail or is it institutions or professional investors that is going to drive Bitcoin to hyperbitcoinization? I think it's really both, but there's different phases. If retail hadn't taken Bitcoin to $250, $300 billion evaluation, institutions would never have found it interesting in the first place. It would have been too small and irrelevant. So we had retail driving it mainly to get to here. It doesn't mean that the rest of retail won't get in because they will. It will be money of the world. And so everyone will have Bitcoin eventually, but retail drove it to here. Now institutions are coming in with big money, like MicroStrategy, because he simply sees it as a better store value.
Thank you.
And so now they will take it, to the moon, basically, and together we'll take it to Mars.
Yeah, let me jump in on. I want to jump in.
I'm sorry, Guy. I wanted to hear from Robert because he was about to talk right before. Yes.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Sorry.
I think to wrap the price discussion too from earlier, I actually see 20K as the new 1K. I think if you just look at the price pattern of Bitcoin historically. So the last all-time high was 1150. You had an 85% drawdown to 200. It ran up to 20K, another 85% drawdown. So I think we're kind of back at that phase, which is the late 16 phase. And that was all before, $4 trillion of quantitative easing in the US. And I think, what are we up to? 20 trillion globally. So this thing is just, it's the arc of encrypted energy on the flood of fiat. So I'm really excited about the next few years. And I think too, price, the other thing that I wanted to say about is that it's a proxy for as number go up, state power go down. So I think that's another way to look at it. Like, it's really, really interesting to follow price, that it is a reflection of the collapse of the central banking model, of the economic tyranny unwinding, if you will. So I love to look at it through that lens. As far as what happens with escape velocity, I've talked about this a lot. That there's this idea from Taleb called the minority rule, where if there's an obstinate minority, they can actually impose their preferences on the majority. And he talks about this across a number of domains. And typically that number is around 4%. So I'm looking at Bitcoin and thinking, if its market cap gets to, say, even a 4% market penetration, call the total addressable market for global store value 100 trillion. Maybe that's a little bit conservative. It's quite higher than that, but say it's 100 trillion. That would mean Bitcoin at around a $4 trillion market cap, or about $200,000 per Bitcoin, should start to behave differently. Its price action should behave substantially different. And it could go into a more sustained growth phase versus these big blow off tops and dips. But who knows? To the earlier point, and no one knows who said this, has been going around on Twitter lately, but I love this quote that everybody buys Bitcoin at the price they deserve.
Yeah.
So it's just, everyone's going to buy it eventually. It's just who figures it out first, essentially. And in regards to fighting back against the economic tyranny, I think privacy is the next battleground. Bitcoin's got it all except privacy. We have to figure that out, either at layer 2 or I don't think it's possible to base layer. As far as I understand it, there's a trade-off between supply assurance and privacy. So I think that will be kind of the attack point for regulators in this next phase. So to Mark's earlier point, like, we do have to be the keepers of the flame and say, carry this thing as an expression of the freedom of speech. Like, that's what it really is. It's a humanitarian movement. This isn't just some fancy money that's helping people buy Lambos. It's ending a cycle of criminality that's been around for thousands of years. So I think it's important to talk about that.
Absolutely. It's important to stay vigilant. I want to jump to RD and then back to Guy Bennett, Pub Lord. But RD, you're in the UK, different from the US. There is no constitution. In a lot of Western states that don't kind of have this explicit protection of speech, we're seeing some scary stuff like appear on the internet, police doing some weird stuff. Can you kind of talk about that? And what does kind of Bitcoin mean in all of what you're seeing on the ground?
I'm not really very exposed to it, to be honest. It's kind of I'm self-employed and I live in my own little bubble, really. But yeah, I mean, we don't have the constitution. They do some crazy things with the laws here, and they're really complicated as well. Like, not many people really understand what the laws are, and there's so many loopholes. I think that's like one of the problems that Peter McCormack's had with his law cases. It's one of the reasons why Craig tried to do it here, because the laws are so sketchy here. But yeah, in terms of, I just wanted to say, with Bitcoin, what's going to drive it and who's going to drive it. What I was going to say was that who's going to drive it is the people that are waking up to what's going on. The people that are waking up to all the money printing. As soon as you wake up, you go and buy Bitcoin. Do you know what I mean? That's what happened with me, and that's what's happening with Paul Tudor Jones. Everyone, each person's just waking up, and then they're going just buying Bitcoin, and the more people that wake up, the more people are going to buy it. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say on that.
Oh, that's an awesome point. That is an awesome point. It doesn't matter how big or small, you can wake up and buy your sats.
Yeah.
So if I could jump in and kind of point something out too with this conversation of who's driving the market, one thing that we haven't connected the dots on a lot in the Bitcoin space is, we have wealth inequality in the U.S. I mean, I'm U.S. centric, obviously, so this is how I see things. But, we got like, I think it's what, top 1% owns like 50% of the wealth in the United States. Can someone like check me on that? Does that sound about right? So, what does it mean if, the bottom 99% has the other 50% of all the wealth? Like, that means that you have to see huge penetration in, the common man of the United States for Bitcoin, or you would need to see, adequate penetration in the top 1%. So when we're talking about like who's driving the market, I think it's an interesting question because we really have two narratives that are forming. There's like the institutional narrative of, hedge against inflation and uncorrelated asset, asymmetric risk, yada, yada, yada. And then you have like the I would say my Bitcoin pleb sort of narrative, which is like, it's a savings tool. You can hodl, you're protected. You don't have to worry about fluctuations and monetary devaluation, all that kind of stuff. You buy it and don't think about it. And it's like both of those narratives are hitting different people at different rates. And I think it's like a game of like it's a race between, the top 1%. Are they going to figure out asymmetric risk and uncorrelated asset faster than the pleb is going to figure out, hey, my savings account gets me less than 1% interest every year, and I'm getting completely inflated out of all my value unless I speculate in the stock market with a whole bunch of companies I know nothing about. Like either one of those can wake up at any given moment, and I couldn't tell you which one's the cart and which one's the horse, but it feels like both of them are pulling Bitcoin along kind of at their own pace.
Yeah, I'll be your huckleberry. To be quite honest with you, I think that when you're looking at the people that are quote unquote waking up, you don't have the money waking up from, we'll say, from a plebeian. Hey, we have this debate too. Is it a plebeian that goes to a pleb or a plebe? But I'll tell you this: what we have now versus 2017 when I came in. What you have now is the amount of money that is just sucking up this cell wall is not the same. It's different. This isn't people that realize, oh my gosh, also my 401k is shit. I'm going to buy Bitcoin. It's different this time. I know because I've been there both times. I was there at the beginning. I'm here now. I have more confidence. And I put something, I have more confidence now in buying Bitcoin at $20,000 than I did when I was buying it at 3,400 and stacking sats. I've been here the whole time. So, yeah, what you have now, there's institutional money coming in and soaking it up. People are going to give it up, unfortunately. Well, look, for the guys that want to cash out, have been here, God bless them. They deserve it. But for the rest of them, hey, man. Moving forward, we're at least 100K by the end of 2021.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, like, it's a different wake up to some extent for a pleb versus an institutional, big guy. And I can't imagine too many plebs who are selling too much right now because I feel like they're waking up to this new monetary system, whereas institutions are waking up to a way to, boost revenues or, skirt some swing trades off of Bitcoin, so I am curious to see exactly who is selling right now and like, what's the goal there? I don't know.
Traders and miners probably, right?
The miners,
miners have to sell, right? Most of them, obviously they can kind of manage that and play their own games, but I think the miners are selling and traders are selling. I think to Guy's point, right, it is different this time, and to kind of Robert's point, as it gets bigger, the action gets different as well, right? And so one big shift, and we can see it in the data, we can see that, looking at Google search terms and trends, right, we're only at kind of where we were in May of 2017 with about like 3 to 5 million a month versus in December of 2017 we're at 45 million. So we can see that retail isn't coming in, and so we know that a lot of that buying has been the corporations and the funds and the grayscales and whatnot. And a lot of that Bitcoin is coming off the market and probably won't go back on the market. And so I think, in 2017 in that run up, we saw half a dozen 30% drops. And the last drop we saw was about 20%, right? So the drops are getting less. And so I think, the stronger hands will prevail and that action will get a little bit different. And that's a good thing. I'm happy with, the micro strategies wanting to move their treasury into it. It's the Wall Street funds that I'm not so happy about, but definitely the price action is going to be different.
So I got a quick question though. Mark, you'd be a good one. I haven't obviously haven't talked too much. What really blew my mind with MicroStrategy was this idea of, hey, guess what? You can buy Bitcoin and it's just a store of value and you leverage it as an asset. You leverage it. That's it. You never sell again because, the first time I heard about it is gold 2.0, store value, medium of exchange and unit of account, and you move forward. But to me, what's most fascinating is this just could be a store of value. And no one has really, in my mind, really talked about it enough.
Well, it can be anything you want it to be. So like people say, well, that can't be money.
Yeah.
It's like, well, anything can be money. You go to
Sure.
Venezuela, they're using batteries and water as money, right? So it could be whatever we want. To Robert's point, like whatever that saying is going around, you buy at the price you want. I think it might have come from a saying that says the people don't get the government they need, they get the government they deserve. I think maybe it came from that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like, what is it that we need? I want it as a store of value. You want it as medium exchange. So it's different things to different people. And it also evolves over time as well.
Sure.
But I don't know. And then if you look at the way it kind of grows, right, it does start as that speculative asset. And so it's a speculative asset eventually kind of moves into a collectible. And as collectibles are with the rich, right, cars, fine art, etc., those are stores of value for them, right? They're collectibles, but they're stores of value. And then eventually it can move on to something bigger. And so it's different things to different people. I also like to say, just because it's not something today doesn't mean it won't be. It's like if you looked at a 5-year-old LeBron James, he would never be a good NBA player. I mean, he's 5 years old. How can you say that, right? When he's 16,
he was 6 feet tall.
When he's 16, you go, oh shoot, he might be a good NBA player. And when he's 19, you're like, dude, he's going to win the MVP, right? So that's kind of where Bitcoin's at, somewhere in that 6-7-year-old kind of LeBron James or something, maybe.
Bitcoin-
What I found. No, I just wanted to finish up and I'll shut up. Sorry. But what I found most fascinating was because until he arrived on the scene to buy Bitcoin and put it on, as a reserve asset, you never heard that argument in the space. So I thought that was so interesting. Like within the past, since August, like, it's like, dear God, this guy has an idea of buying and holding Bitcoin for 100 years and he may not sell it. That's all.
Bullish. So, I want to make a defense for Bitcoin as a unit of account, but I think that Robert can actually do it better than me, and I know he wants to speak up.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I'm just going to pass it straight off to Robert.
I was just going to say I like the Mark's LeBron James analogy. I tweeted this the other day so the average empire's lifespan is 250 years.
Yeah.
So America turns 250 in 2026. And that's the same year Bitcoin turns 18. So this thing is like, I think what Brady once made the joke that Bitcoin's like a precocious teenager, like going into high school. Like, we've seen it in the 100 billions of market cap being something substantial, like growing very rapidly. But now as it gets into the trillions of market cap, it really starts to shake up the global order. It's starting to come into its own in a lot of ways.
Do you think
as far as
do you think 18-year-old Bitcoin gets to vote for president?
I think 18-year-old Bitcoin will make the concept of president irrelevant eventually. Not to say in 2026 this all goes away. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that the fact that we have a popularity contest to decide which ape gets to lead 300 million apes will start to be increasingly perceived as the charade that it is, right? These systems we have right now are bullshit, frankly. And it sounds extreme. Like most people think today that, oh, you have the right to vote, we're empowered. And that's true in the arc of history. But the only vote that really matters is how you spend your money, right? And our money is manipulated and centrally controlled. So I think that's what this represents. It's an evolution of democracy in some ways. We're moving past representative and towards a more Republican or direct democracy type model. But as far as like how it gets adopted, I think it's a great point that it's being, people that don't understand Bitcoin necessarily are buying it either because they've been victimized by an oppressive regime, right? They're in Venezuela and they're just trying to make ends meet and survive, or they're at the other end of that spectrum and they are shareholders in this oppressive regime. They benefit from it actively. They're billionaires holding bank stock, et cetera, and they're buying it as an insurance policy because it represents an existential threat to their whole model. So I see it as like this kind of sphere that Bitcoin's just eating from the outside in. It's getting satisfying a need for
Chamath with Schmuck Insurance is rich. Like, that's so rich.
Yeah.
He is like a Facebook OG, and then he's like, yeah, buy Bitcoin because it's Schmuck Insurance.
Yeah, Schmuck Insurance, great term. So it's just permeating its way from the outward in, I think. And then as far as like how it's going to be used, it's the most pristine collateral we've ever had, right? It's unencumbered. It's a bearer asset. So if you hold it, it's yours. There's no title search on Bitcoin. It's not necessary. It's 24/7 liquid. You can move it anywhere in the world in an hour. So I would expect to see some combination of that. People, like if you've got massive Bitcoin holdings, your typical billionaire is only spending like 2% of their net worth per year. That's all they're cycling through. So if you're going to only spend 2% of your net worth per year, you probably would just borrow that, especially if you assume the asset's going to keep appreciating in value like you would do with prestigious real estate or anything else. But then I think too, again, you have that optionality to be able to use it as a medium of exchange as well. You can push it through just as sats through Lightning Network or what have you. But the thing I think is really interesting about all of this is how much it is changing people. I wrote about this a little bit in my latest piece, Bitcoin is Hope, but comparing the character of an entrepreneur, someone that like goes out into the world, takes risk, figures shit out, and if they fail, like we all learn from their mistakes, versus the bureaucrat, which just sits behind a desk and does they're leading from the back. And I like how Bitcoin is inspiring this new wave of entrepreneurship, right? It's encouraging people to be more accountable, to educate themselves, to be curious about the systems that they operate within, to be curious about their world. And as Alex Svetsky said in one of our recent podcasts, he said Bitcoin's digital enlightenment. Like it's amazing how much people are changing as a result of interacting with this new money. And that gets me more excited than anything, because a lot of people think you go into entrepreneurship and the goal is to get rich, right? Which maybe that is for some people, but the reward you'll find on the other end of entrepreneurship is the learning and the experience that you gain. And so I feel like Bitcoin just accelerates entrepreneurship.
By the way, you started that by saying Bitcoin is hope. If you go to www.hope.com, you might get a kick out of what you see.
So, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt here, but in terms of Bitcoin, I usually think of Bitcoin as a values transmission system. So it's not the value of Bitcoin, but the values of Bitcoin that are really going to make a difference. And everyone that adopts Bitcoin adopts its intrinsic values. So I think that ties into what Robert said. Someone in the chat, Canadian Hodl, said the British dude is not contributing enough. Canadian Hodl, I'll have you know that it's like 2 a.m. in Europe. So have some mercy on the man. But RD, I'm gonna poke you, man.
I was going to chip in earlier and just say Bitcoin is different to every person. And to a billionaire, it's something very different to what it is to a pleb or to someone in a third world country that's unbanked. Yeah, it's different to everyone. It's very different to me to what it is to Michael Saylor. So yeah, that was what I was going to try and chip in with. I'm just sat here watching because I'm used to watching Mark and Robert on Bitcoin TV now. I forgot I was even on this stream.
Danish Hodl, we haven't heard from you in a little bit too.
Thank God. Yeah, there you go. Guy Bennett gives. What I think is really funny here tonight is Guy Bennett gives me on the Toxic Happy Hour show. He's giving me a lot of heat for always talking over the guests. But if anyone has grabbed the mic tonight, it's Guy Bennett. So thank you. What do you want to hear from me? You spoke, Brand, earlier about the rich and the poor and the wealth disparity, and I think a really important point is that the wealth disparity or wealth divide we have in society today is because of the fiat currency monetary system, where poor people or people in the lower part of society mainly holds their savings in cash, in dollars, for instance, if it's US. That dollar is getting punished every single year as they print more. However, richer people who hold assets like real estate and stocks, etc., they benefit from the interest rate going down, the monetary supply being printed higher, because they have a debt usually in, for instance, as a mortgage in real estate, it kind of stays the same. The interest rate low, that is great. When the interest rate is low on mortgage, most people know that, the real estate price goes up. So the current system is creating a lot of wealth divide, and Bitcoin does not have this functionality of inherently rewarding the wealthy and punishing the poor. So even though some people say, oh yeah, but some people came in early to Bitcoin, they have a lot of Bitcoin, they will be rich. Yeah, but inherently in the system is a lot of honesty, truth, and what's it called? It's fair. Bitcoin is fair to a much larger extent, because when you have a money that is deflationary, a sound money that is hard capped at 21 million units, doesn't matter how many units there are, as long as it's hard capped, the value goes up, which means that, if you work the cash register at the local supermarket, as long as you can put a little bit aside every month, that money is going to get worth more and more and more. By the time you retire, you can actually retire. They can't retire today in the system that we have. So I really look, and that's what we're going to talk with, Jeff Booth about this, the price of tomorrow, which I really like him, because he talks about, we're all saying sound money is better, but he's explaining the how and the why. So
one thing that you said that made me think of is, we talk about how like the rich and the poor have different reasons for wanting to use Bitcoin. I'd flip it on its head, and I would say that really what Bitcoin is exposing is how the fiat system doesn't work even for the rich or the poor. Because, the poor need it for a savings account, but the rich also need it because they have no way to store their wealth that they can own and hold. I mean, the best way they can do it is like real estate, and then they're paying real estate taxes on top of that. I mean, like, the system just doesn't work that well for anyone. And Bitcoin exposes all of those flaws, and like every single person can see their own aspect of the flaws through their own experiences and their own circumstances.
Well, it does work. It does work really well for a few.
For the cantillionaires.
Yeah.
The cantillionaires, yes.
Well, so I want to jump in. I think this is a great place to talk about, like, we all see Bitcoin as technology. A lot of people use the framework of the technology S-curve of adoption as how Bitcoin will be adopted. When are we going to hit the S, right? When are we going to go from flat and up to we're truly going parabolic and going to a Bitcoin standard? I mean, we're getting cosmic here, but I think that's what the people want. I think the people want to get cosmic. So, I mean, Is it this cycle? Is it next? Like, what do we need to see? What are the characteristics of the world when it's like, holy shit, everyone needs to dump their assets and buy Bitcoin?
Hey, let me go first, because half of our Toxic Happy Hour podcast is into bullshit predictions of what's going to happen.
All right, let's bullshit.
No. No, I mean in the best way. Look, people finally started coming in at $100, $1,000, $4,000, $5,000. When you go from 10,000, when you ride out a wave up to 20,000 down to 3,400, back up to 20. When it's $100,000 and you get people like Michael Saylor that are jumping in, you can't deny it anymore. It is a better store of value than anything in the world. It is simply the
Do you know what
greatest.
Michael Saylor's reputation is outside of like becoming huge into Bitcoin? He's known as the guy that jumps onto something and then pumps it hard. That's like his reputation in the endemic world. And not to like I think he's amazing,
Yeah.
but he's acting at his reputation precedes him. He got into Bitcoin and man, he knows how to pump it. He knows
Well,
how to
good for
pump
him because
Gets
he's
it.
pumped
It's
this.
awesome.
He's pumped this thing pretty hard. But he has said all the right points. When you look around, where the hell else are you going to put your money right now? Seriously, are you bonds, gold? Where else do you put your money? So I think it's fantastic when you see this. There's nowhere else money. The big money from Apple, from the FANG groups that come in, what's it going to be? Yeah, guess what? What if they put 1%, 2%? They don't have to go 100% in, but at 3%, it's over.
Who wants to jump in?
The one thing I said earlier when we started talking about price is just not focusing too much on the price going up, because I don't want to be too disappointed when the price drops back down. I mean, we all know it's a volatile asset. We also know that it's hard to kill, right? I mean, it can't be killed, and we all know. I mean, at least the hardcore Bitcoiners. I mean, whether it's legal or not, we're all still going to hodl it and we're still going to use it. But I think everybody here, I'm sure, understands the battle that it's up against. I mean, we know that the powers that be, whether that's the IMF, WEF, the central bank, whatever, they cannot allow it to happen. And so it is going to be a big battle. I don't know if it's, I mean, there's certainly people, and I'm sure there's probably people on this call that have, 100% of their money into it. I certainly don't recommend that. But again, I'm more of the revolutionary. Like if it dropped to 5,000 and never moved up again, I'd be okay. I'd still hold it. Right. But I think putting all your hope into that, it's going to be worth $1 million or $1 trillion in the future. I don't know. That's just not why I'm here. And I think if that's all you're focusing on, you could be setting yourself up for a little bit of disappointment. I hate to say that. I don't want to rain anybody's parade, but that's how I kind of feel a little bit. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, I think that's sound advice. Like the thing about the future is that it's always uncertain, right? So anyone that tries to put out that's why with the stock to flow model, people are like, oh, it's just a certainty, it's going to adhere to this thing forever. That's not what economics is, right? There's a reason Keynesian economics is bullshit, and it's because they try to mathematize and predict all these economic aggregates, but it's not real. Like and you have to just always know that the future is unknowable and prepare accordingly, right? That's what money is. It's supposed to be an insurance policy on that, so you can buy anything you need in case shit happens, because shit does happen. To speak to the S curve adoption a bit, I do think, as I said earlier, Bitcoin starts to behave differently when it gets past that 4 trillion market cap. I think that's what I'm really looking at, and I think that's achievable in this market cycle. It's about $200,000 for Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
I think the pricing behavior changes beyond that. Now, should it get to gold's market cap, which is around $12 trillion, that is when things get really, that's when I think you're fully on the steep portion of the S curve, because it is now officially disrupting. The market has spoken, saying that Bitcoin is now disrupting the tool that it is most comparable to, which is gold, right? Gold has made the world go around for 5,000 years. And when Bitcoin is equal to or greater than its market cap, things get really, really, really crazy.
One thing I'd add to that, though, is obviously we always look at it as digital gold, but we also have heard many times like a digital Swiss bank account in your pocket. And gold may be at 10 or 12 trillion dollars, which is pretty big, but offshore banking is 30 to 40 trillion.
That's right.
30 to 40 trillion sitting in offshore banks. And Bitcoin may be digital gold, but it for sure is an offshore bank account.
100%. And that's a great
And, you know, everyone's talking about it has to reach that S curve. It has to reach mainstream adoption, but are offshore bank accounts mainstream?
No, it doesn't need to at all. It needs that critical mass of capital, of market cap, which I think is around 4 trillion. I could be wrong, could be double to triple that. But it's a great point. Even the Swiss bank account itself fundamentally was gold, right? It's the bank was holding your gold at some point, which became currency, which was became bank codes in your pocket or in your mind. And so Bitcoin's satisfying the store value function that we've disintermediated across these different, whether it's physical gold in your vault or your Swiss bank account or fine art, it's sort of just devouring all of this store value function across assets. And yeah, there's just going to be huge demand for it. I'm glad you brought up the sovereign individual earlier, because it makes a very strong mathematical case that once people realize how much they're being destroyed by inflation, right? If you even save $10,000 a year, of reducing your exposure to inflation, $10,000 a year, if you can compound that capital at 10% a year, you're in the millions of dollars of savings across the average lifetime earner. So as people wake up to that Bitcoin is this exit option from